Hello, everyone. This is Dolly. Um, this is my final presentation. So, today I'll be discussing the art of hip hop and the culture that surrounds it. So, first, it's very important to acknowledge that hip hop was actually originated from oral African American tradition. So, this is just another way of storytelling, but more in African American culture as it's deeply rooted. However, it was not yet till the 1970s in which it was embraced by the youth, low income, urban African Americans. That was the main demographic of its listeners and audience. It was a culture that reflected real personal struggles of the musicians. However, it just so happened to be the black demographic, and it put this negative kind of stereotype on it. The art itself is represented by the real life experiences that the musicians have gone through. I would say this is kind of pivotal to understand that many of the artists who do perform or, practice hip hop as their music, it's more of them entailing their life, describing the struggles that they have been through. And I think that's a great way, or the most effective way that people connect to this type of music is because they do also deal with the same struggles as we do, or whatever the case may be. It's just very relatable music. And this whole idea kind of, in my eyes, would represent white America and what it actually is, because for those who think that hip hop is this, notion of negativity and it's just bad for you and just, it has a negative look on the person if they say they were like to listen to hip hop. And it just shows me that those who, criticize this are the ones that don't understand it. That's simply the fact, is that they don't understand the music. And I think that's one main thing that makes hip hop is the actual meaning of its music. So it's a lot of similar themes throughout the music. A lot of artists use the same themes. I would say it's like drugs, money, sex, social justice, any social issues, and so on. And even though it has negative stereotype, because I would say that yes, it's more explicit and vulgar compared to, I would say, country or, like pop, like those types of forms of music. It does seem to be more explicit. However, it's more real. It's real. I love hip hop because of its realness and its authenticity that it brings to the table in the music industry. There's no like, it's just all real. Everyone's a real person. So I now want to discuss what makes hip hop actually hip hop. So it started its rise in New York when a group of blacks. It was a controversial group. A lot of people think it was a gang, but they didn't really do gang related. Yeah, they may have been labeled as a gang, but still, another idea of gangs is that a lot of people put this negative image on them. However, it could be considered a fraternity and a sorority. Like, it's just more of like a brotherhood in a way, or like a friendship, a group of people who share friendship, who, hang out and do stuff together. So they were called the Black Spades, and they would throw these things called hip hop parties. And it wasn't actually until this guy named DJ Kool Herc, he was actually credited to be the first ever hip hop artist or rapper ever, because he was a DJ for these parties, and they would throw these little kickbacks, and that's where hip hop, its style or its lifestyle, grew. Many people just started, it's more of a party. Like, when you associate hip hop, it's more of like, let's have a good time because we've already had the bad times, that type of idea. So the hip hop culture is to be considered, I think, different towards what we know as rap today. I would say that rap has definitely taken over our generation. However, in the late 1980s, I would say, I think 1980s and 1990s, it was the prime time of this hip hop lifestyle. And rap music, I think, is a subgenre of the whole hip hop culture, because even though it may carry similar characteristics, oh my gosh, I can't speak, then it's like a subgenre of the whole. And so hip hop is technically, this is what actually considered to be hip hop: beatboxing, hip hop fashion, being street smart, philosophical knowledge of what the subculture was about, hip hop language, and many more. That is why being street smart is essential in making this music, because you'll understand it more. This is very pivotal, because where you come from in the world of hip hop is your everything, your hood. It's how you carry yourself. It's, how you've brought yourself up from what, the world has seen you, or what, everyone else, has seen you. So, rap's history actually is a relation of African oral tradition as well. It provides rap with such current social significance, but it also roots hip-hop in a long-standing history of oral historians, lyrical fetishisms, and political advocacy. So I think it's a real good outlet on, what's going on in the world. How can we help the world? How can we, share our voice in the world and, like, the matters that are going on? I would say one important thing that happened in the hip hop culture dramatically is definitely the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry. So this rivalry kind of was primed during the 1990s, when hip hop artists from East Coast and West Coast just did not get along. They hated each other, and it was just bad. So in the end, it kind of turned to an increase in, like, gang-related violence towards the two opposing sides. And so we can look at the outcome of the unknown murders of Tupac and Biggie as huge outcomes from, this rivalry, and how serious it actually was. So not only have those two died early on from this rivalry, but the rivalry still kind of continues today on, what hood you represent and stuff like that. Like Nipsey Hussle and Mac Dre. So it's very controversial. So right now I'm going to talk about some impactful artists that shaped the future of hip hop. So number one, I would say, is Tupac. So Tupac was actually born in New York originally. So he's from the East Coast, and he moved to Baltimore. He kind of moved around, changed the world. He also shaped, the West Coast image with Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube. A lot of, South Central LA rappers began to rise for the West Coast. However, Biggie, all the way in the East Coast, back in New York, where he, cultivated, the original hip hop, Bronx hip hop style, very hard, very, violent, aggressive music that, it comes deeply rooted in the lives that they have, lived and experienced. So it was Wu-Tang Clan, DMX over there. So it was a great time for East Coast and West Coast, even though this rivalry has been going on for decades now. Now looking at the artists nowadays and uprising of hip-hop, we can now look at differences between the style of Miss Lauryn Hill to now Lil' Kim and Nicki Minaj, Missy Elliott, and how we can look from big East Coast rappers such as Jay-Z compared to Snoop Dogg back in the West. So it's still viable, and, it's still a valid, situation that's still going on, but they have continued to make great music within the industry. I think my last question for you guys is it fair or justifiable to judge an individual, especially for Blacks to be degraded towards the music that they listen to because of its explicitity or whether it's provocative? So please just further explain. And I just want your opinion and analysis on the whole idea of negatively stereotyping someone for hip hop. That concludes my presentation, and I hope you